The clock has started.
I feel fine.
Godspeed, John Glenn.
I feel the liftoff.
This is a new and strange environment.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Okay, we are going live with the Slightly Off Axis podcast. I'm your host, Ken Otto, and we look at this history of the space program through the workers that worked out there at the Kennedy Space Center. Tonight's guest, or this afternoon's guest, is Chad Krueger. Welcome, Chad. Chad worked, as I recall, for over 9 years as a member of the Space Shuttle team. He's currently a heavy maintenance rep for an airline, and he works 8 days on, 5 days off. And I hope that was okay to mention, because I was going to ask you if that was okay to mention or not. So
yes, that's okay. Fine.
We didn't mention your actual employer. So please welcome, audience, Chad Krueger to the show. And he's going to talk about his experience at Kennedy Space Center. And it's good to have you here tonight, Chad.
It's good to be here.
So, Chad, first I need to know who you work for, if that's okay, or the organization group. I know that sometimes it's like, mentioned as part of a group or a team.
Yeah, no, I currently now am working for SkyWest Airlines.
Okay. But when you worked at Kennedy Space Center, who did you work for, or are you allowed to name it?
Yeah, it was United Space Alliance.
Okay, that's familiar. What were your title and responsibilities there with ULA?
So started off as a mechanic in the aft shop in OPF3 on Discovery. I went to AST. I was an AST on the main propulsion system, the MPS system, for the last 2 years of my working out there.
Okay, and sometimes when people mention acronyms, I know what they mean. What does AST actually mean?
AST is an advanced system technician. It's basically the ability to write your own paperwork on certain things up to a point. So if there was an issue that we came across, a non-routine of sorts, we'd have to submit it to engineering to get disposition on repairs and how to fix it. As an advanced system technician in that system only, you can speed that along and kind of write your own paper to a point, and then the engineers can approve it. It just kind of gets you back to work a lot faster.
You may wish to answer some of these things as we go along with other questions. You worked at Kennedy Space Center. In your performance of this job, did you work at other facilities besides Kennedy Space Center?
I was on the runway crew as well for landing. So I worked out at Edwards Air Force Base quite a bit. I was out in White Sands a few times, but that was the majority of my travels out there. I spent quite a bit of time out in California.
Okay. Give me 1 second, because I got to click OK. We don't have any comments. Probably that's just a notification that we went live. So that's not somebody trying to comment to us. What years or what era of the program did you do this line of work?
So I hired on in 2002, I believe it was. I actually hired on while Columbia was on orbit, and then the tragic events of that, and then I carried all the way through the end of 2010.
Okay, so normally I ask this question down the line: how the Columbia accident affect you or your job or things after the investigation of that?
Well, I mean, obviously affected a lot of people pretty bad, but I had just come on there. I didn't have the family that was with Columbia and that kind of stuff as much as the other people did. Obviously, it was kind of a scare of, was the job going to still stay there, that kind of stuff after that happened. But once it happened and we were able to learn from what, transpired and what caused it, we were able to move on and make, better decisions, I guess, down the road. So it was tragic, and thankfully I think we learned from it on that one.
How many launches did you witness in person during your tenure there? Was it a lot, a few?
Yeah, most of them. Well, good majority of them. From like 2005 5 towards all the way through the end, I spent quite a bit of time on the pre-launch crew out at Edwards. So I was, on the runway out at Edwards waiting for it as it launched. But I would say probably 25 missions or so I watched in person.
Mm-hmm. How many landings did you see? Comparable amount or
Yeah.
more or less?
Yep.
Okay. Was your life different when someone from another facility came to your work site? Like, how did their experiences compare to yours, or did you have any of that sort of interaction with people?
We
from
didn't
other
have a whole
sites?
lot. I mean, as far as other sites, working in the aft compartment for the shuttle, we had, Rocketdyne and whatever else would come through as they put their stuff in. But for the most part, vendor-wise, we actually didn't have a whole lot that came through on that side.
So you worked for a vendor.
No, I did not. But we didn't normally have a whole lot of vendors that came
But
through.
vendors would be the people that would be interacting with you that weren't
Yeah.
there at your daily job.
Yep.
Did you ever have a personal experience or chance to talk to the astronauts?
Yeah, several actually. Eileen Collins was a regular that came through there. And again, being part of the runway crew, astronauts were always out walking around after, and a lot of them quite often would come up and talk to just about everybody they could. I mean, there was a lot of them that were that way.
Is there any story that they related that you would want to tell the audience, or just
there's
too much to
honestly,
tell?
most of them are out there that you can read upon. I never really got any of the really good stories that they came across, but
did you receive mementos as part of your job, like patches or that sort of thing?
yeah. Every mission that we were handed out like patches and coins and stuff like that. I still have quite a few of those. Toward the end of the program, they gave us. I've got 2 flags that were flown on Discovery as kind of a thank you and all that stuff for our service and things along those lines. I've got a couple of those small mementos that just kind of accrued over the years, but there's a few different patches and stuff I have that were flown on the shuttle as a thank you, I guess you could say.
Okay, I'm going to skip over the Challenger accident unless you want to talk about it, but we already know that you weren't working there at that time.
Yeah, no, I was in 3rd grade when that one happened.
Wow. Okay, so yeah, that would be quite a difference. So we can skip over a couple of those. This is the one that I always think is interesting. What were your adolescent ambitions when you were growing up? What did you want to be or do? And was this job similar to that job that you had in your mind as a child, or not even close? And if it wasn't close, what made you change your childhood ambitions to your real life career?
For me, I'm one of the ones that my child ambitions have pretty much lived their course. My dad was a crew chief on F-4s in Vietnam. He actually worked for Martin Marietta, Lockheed Martin, then ULA out there on Titan 4 and Atlas 5s. So that's kind of been there. My best friend growing up and his father, they would buy wrecked aircraft and we would fix them. So at 7 years old, I started working on airplanes, between reskinning aircraft, rebuilding engines, hydraulic systems, everything else. And his dad was also a certified flight instructor. So ever since I was a kid, anything in aviation has been what I wanted to do. And I have not left it yet. I've done everything from, I'm an A&P, I'm an IA, I'm a pilot, I've got a bachelor's degree. Just kind of gone through the gamut of small little single engine Cessnas through 747-800s, space shuttle. I worked for SpaceX for 3 years. And then I recently worked for an MRO down in Melbourne, Florida, maintaining heavy aircraft. And then just recently decided to kind of change routes up a little bit, and I went the rep side. So it's kind of like an inspector, making sure the aircraft are done right and everything else. But I have not left aviation since I was 7 years old.
Well, I'm glad you touched on all that, because I was going to ask you about your current career. So I'm glad you told the audience about all those things. Audience, if you have questions and you're on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch. You can send us questions. If you're on Twitter, I'm going to actually look at my phone and see if anybody tweeted anything to us, because we can't access Twitter directly. So give me a moment, Chad.
Not a problem.
Switch to that account and pull up its profile. And I don't see anything going on there, so it doesn't look like we're missing anything. It might be too early in the day for our resident question asker, Ed, to actually send in questions today. But I do have some questions that he used at previous podcast. Almost said it wrong.
And again, you can feel free
If
to send
given
them
the
to me and I'll
opportunity,
interact as well.
if given the opportunity to be in space, would you consider space travel?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I'm not afraid of it. I think I believe it is the future. I'm not sure if it's going to be in our lifetime, but I do believe it is the future. So yeah, if the right opportunity arose with the right company flying it, I'd go.
Okay. And this is just the off the wall question. Would the lady that's there with you, is that your wife or your spouse or a significant other? Would she be interested in doing anything with space, or has she done anything with space in her lifetime?
She's afraid to fly, period.
So opposites attract, as they always say.
Yeah.
If you could redo your life, would you, and make different choices, or are you happy with the way that your life unfolded?
I mean, there's a few choices I would like to say I would change, but at the same token, I'm kind of one of those. Overall, I've got a pretty good life. I've got great kids. I've got a great family. I've had a long career. I'm almost 44 years old, and literally almost 37 of it has been in the field that I love. So, I mean, there's some things obviously I wish could be a little bit different, but I think everybody would say the same exact thing. So overall, I think I would probably stay down the same path I stayed on.
Okay. And this is not a written down question, strictly from my mind. And I was just thinking that, what was I just thinking? Get to a certain age, you have to try to think about what you thought about. So let me just give me a thought here. While I think about what that question was, I will want to tell our audience, you're watching the Slightly Off Axis podcast. If you have questions for us about the show, or you want to be an on-air guest like Chad, be sure to contact us via our social messaging that you're watching this on. Call 321-613-8591 or email us at kenotto21@yahoo.com. And you can text that number as well for the phone number. And let me see if I can remember what I was thinking of earlier, or I'll just go into the last question and maybe I'll think about it again. I remember now. What was your most interesting experience in your job with the space program? What do you recall the most? Obviously, could be anything.
That's actually kind of a tough one. One of the things that kind of stands out was when we flew the Buzz Lightyear doll to the space station and came back, and it came back on the orbiter and landed out in California. So it's kind of interesting to see how Disney and NASA kind of partnered up for that, and watching Buzz Lightyear be part of our day-to-day operations, getting the orbiter safed and then loaded back up on the 747. So one that stands out, but I mean, a lot of them, I mean, it's just the experience of seeing the space shuttle take off and come back and land, being part of the crew that was part of the closeout crew on the launch pad, several times putting the aft doors on. There's one time I remember torquing the last aft door on the 50-1 door on the orbiter for the aft compartment. And then that mission happened to land in California, and I was out there for it, and I was the first one to go inside it as well. So there's some stuff like that was kind of cool. I was part of a crew one time that I believe it was Atlantis landed out in Florida and rolled in, and later at the end of that shift, I helped Endeavor roll out of the bay right next to it. So it's part of a roll in on one vehicle and a roll out to go to the VAB on the next one. So There's a few things there, but I mean, all the things that I loved about it, we could go on for hours and hours, but those are a couple ones that kind of stand out.
So you said that you started in 2002. Were you there to the end of the shuttle program, or were you?
I was there up until the very final flight of Discovery. Once Discovery launched, that was where I kind of bowed out, and then there was I think one or two more launches after that. But I had moved on to go back into aviation.
Okay, so now we can go to the final question. What do you want to tell the audience about your job or your experiences, or perhaps your retirement goals that we've not talked about?
Just everybody keep your dreams alive. I mean, it's kind of when I preach to my kids. If you're not happy doing what you're doing, then just don't do it. Life's too short. So it's kind of one of those. Again, I started young, started in aviation, and pretty much anything that has flown, I've touched it at one point in time. And my retirement, I want to kind of head down the same path. I want to stay doing with aviation, maybe a little bit out of it, but I will absolutely be involved just until I die. I will always be. I love just going out, sitting at airports and watching things fly. So it's just, if you're not happy doing what you're doing, change it.
Now, an off-the-cuff question. Since you have children, do any of them seem to take after dad and want to do the same kind of things?
Yeah, my oldest daughter, I got her a job recently at my last job. So she's getting into aviation. She actually was awarded, she's 19 years old, graduated high school last year. She actually was graduated with an associate's degree from high school, got a $72,000 scholarship at FIT. So she's working down the path now of getting her pilot's license and a degree, and then is going to go into the Air Force as a pilot, so that as an officer, and then kind of fly for the Air Force for a while, then come out. So she's going to stay in the aviation side. The other daughter, she's happy to be playing with horses, so she's over there.
And one more. I feel like Columbo with the one more question, sir. Recently, as of 1 day ago, there was a Rocket Rangers, as they call themselves, reunion. Did you go to the Rocket Rangers reunion and have anything to talk about regarding that?
No, unfortunately, I did not make it. I'm actually kind of in the process of selling my house as well. So when I'm gone, I'm out in Arizona for 8 days, and I'm back for 4 or 5, depending. And with a holiday, when I'm here, I don't have a whole lot of time to do very much else out there. So I unfortunately did not get back to see the guys.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you very much, Chad, for taking time out of your trip here and your busy schedule to talk to us today, because I know you fit me in, and I really appreciate that. And you have a comment here from one of your cohorts, which I'm going to put up there. It's Ken Strite. He says, "Good to see you, Chad. Miss the good old days."
Oh, absolutely. He was by far the best NASA inspector they had out there.
So again, I thank you for being with us today. Folks, if you're interested in this show, use the contact information I provided earlier. If you missed part of the show, go back and watch it. And I'm going to let Chad go because he's got places to go and things to do. And maybe we can talk to you again at another time, either from here or from your other home. So
absolutely, anytime.
Okay. So we're going to roll the close here once I get to that page. And here we go.
All right, liftoff, and the clock has started. Roger, 0G, and I feel fine. Capsule is turning around.
Godspeed, John Glenn.
I feel the liftoff. The clock has started.
This is a new and strange environment at first, this suddenly finding yourself in orbit.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11.
Welcome home, Columbia. Beautiful, beautiful.
So how's to take it up for hangar, Joe?
We're going to dust it off first.
Well, you ever been to Disneyland? Affirmative.
That was definitely an E-ticket.
Roger that, Sally.
3, 2, 1,
0,
and liftoff. Liftoff. Americans return to space as Discovery clears the tower.